Hello everyone, Michelle here from the Creative Cove. Thanks for joining me today. All right, so today I wanted to play with more of these little mini semi-abstract landscapes. I've been practicing and playing with little mini scraps, and I really love these. I think they're tiny little mini works of art. I think they're so cute, and I started with this size and then moved down to really small ones. So these are some of the original ones that I did. And they're just clusters of super tiny bits of paper with some acrylic paint on top and a black marker that likes to bleed. I gotta make sure I find that marker. It's actually an ink pen, but it bleeds really nice when it's touched with water and paint. So you see you get these nice kind of moody grays, and I really love them. This kind of looks like a distant landscape with some abstract grass in the front. And let's see here, what other ones did I do? Some distant mountains, and this one kind of reminds me of the ocean way off in the distance. And they're just papers with no paper, so just having fun with it. Really super loose approach. Again, far away, a distant landscape. So the idea to me is kind of trying to create a moody atmosphere with these little ones. I say this is one of my favorites here because it's so moody. So let's get started with that. So all you need is some scrap paper. In this case, I'm using like a cheapy watercolor paper, and I'm just cutting myself some rectangles. And then I find I've got some paint on this, just a little rectangle that I trace with a pencil. Let me just get my pencil and pen. Those other ones are drying. I forgot I wanted to do a vertical landscape as well with the trees and show you how I did that one. So we'll just start again while those are drying. So instead of working horizontal, we're going to work vertical. It's the same process of gluing down some pieces. So maybe this one will do something like a cliff in the distance. Let's try it. Worst comes to worst, you don't like the composition or the end result, you just add it back to your scrap pile, tear it up and use it for something else. And that, in the back of my head, I think takes a lot of the pressure off. Again, try not to work right in the center. So you don't want to put your horizon line right in the middle. You kind of drop it low or move it up. It just adds for a little bit more interest in the composition. I'm just going to glue some bits and bobs down. Try to rotate my paper a little bit so I have some added textures. It's nice to repeat those textures though. And you don't have to just do strips. You could do tiny, tiny little tiny pieces like this over here. I struggle trying to pick these things up, but if you have tweezers, you can make some really fun, interesting little pieces in here just by gluing different colored paper, different textures, different fonts. And again, I'm sticking with a very neutral palette like I usually do. But I mean, you can do this with all kinds of colored paper. You can do real pretty kind of fall colors, spring colors, whatever journal or art piece you're working on. But this is just a really interesting way of playing with additional little scraps. And I'm always looking for things like that to do. Just going to scratch some of that paper off. It's a bit thick. Kind of had glue on it or something. I'm going to go with the light paper at the bottom. What else have I got? Let's kind of feed through here. This one here, maybe. Okay. Also, paper that's been torn like this, so you can see, I don't know if you can see on camera, but it has a different texture to it than the flat paper that hasn't been torn yet. So that will absorb ink and paint differently. And that's something to consider too, because it will give you another layer of texture. And the more texture, you know, the more elements and stuff you add, the more interesting it can get. You just have to find a kind of balance in your composition. I'm just gonna pull this up a bit. It's a bit stuck. Sure, there's an easier way of doing that, but like I said, it's not something I'm spending hours on. I'm just having a fun exercise here. I still can't cut that one straight. That's okay. I think I'm going to add a little something into this piece here. I feel like it needs a little something. And then maybe a darker piece, just to break that up. Oh my gosh, it's still snowing. Crazy. I mean, it's inevitable here, but the first snowfall of the season is always a what? It's a what moment, even though it's, you know, it's gonna happen. There's no avoiding it whatsoever. Not where I live. And I do love snow. You know, I love the seasons. I couldn't live somewhere where there were just one season. Just sun all the time. Okay, and we're gonna chop the bottom off here. So kind of finicky part. And we'll paint that so we can let that dry while we work on the other two. So again, you can use whatever color paint you like, but because I'm using a neutral palette, I'm just gonna stick to white, and then I'm gonna let the ink from the pen and even the pencil can bleed here, which is nice if you're using a soft enough lead. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry, and let's move back to these two. They should be, yep, they're dry. I'm gonna put my lid on my glue. Tidy up some of my scraps again. Okay. So where did I put that pen? This is just a cheapy ink pen from the dollar store, or maybe, I'm not even sure where I got it from, a roller ball. And it bleeds when water is added to it. So I really love that about this pen. Now you can use a pen that doesn't bleed, obviously, if you want your marks to show up and stay. So I'm gonna keep this kind of crisp, I think. We'll see where it takes us. But I just kind of take some spots and doodle away, kind of mark making techniques. You know, I don't want to overthink it. And then I will take my brush. Edit that a little bit because Millie just had a big barking session. My son just took her outside to clean his car off. So I've just got a little water here on my brush, and I'm going to dilute some of this ink, and you can see it creates these kind of gray pools, which gives it that moodiness that I'm after. And you can rub it up into the sky. You can create a new horizon up here, for example, like the ocean could be way in the back, or this could be a cloud formation. And I just have so much fun with going back and forth with the pen and the water and the paint over top of all this fun texture we've created. So I'll let that dry a second, and I'll move over to this one. So this one, I think I want to do some serious moody clouds. And then I've got this bit of a slant here from the angle of the paper, which I really like. So I think I'm really gonna darken that up and kind of make it a landscape way off in the back. And then again, I'll just add a little water. I don't have my paper towel, so I'm using my hand to control the amount of water I have. And I'm just gonna soften that pen mark. And then I'll add a little bit more water to my brush. and dilute the pen mark up here. And what I love is that the pen scratches stay behind, unless you really, really scrub it out. But they kind of stay behind and add a whole new element, which is so fun. I mean, you keep going with it. I am going to try and rub some of that off. I should really have paper towel with me. So rubbing it off, seeing it leaves behind these interesting, intriguing marks. Because it is semi-abstract, you know, like it's borderline abstract. It's up to your imagination to see the landscape and the variants and things like that. So maybe I'll go back to some white now, solid white, and I'll pop a little contrast in there. And then maybe put some kind of interesting marks of white paint up front here. Just to get the viewer guessing, hey, what is that? What am I looking at here? Oh, I see this and I see that. And that's the whole point. I'm going to go back over to this one. Maybe put a few interesting white marks in here. Just soft, gentle touches. Nothing too serious. I think I might tone down this background just a smidge. Just a smidge though. Don't want to kill off all my paper. And I'm going to bring out the top of the landscape here. So maybe you have like a landscape in mind, you know, you've seen something and it sticks in your head. So for example, for me, when I was in Scotland, we were driving in the Highlands and I was just in awe of the beauty and simplicity of the landscape there. And this kind of rolling hill effect reminds me of that. All right, so this one you can do something fun. For example, I mean, you can put a house in here. You could do something fun like a fence maybe. So I'm putting a fence in here. You could do this with the paper too. You know, you can. I don't want the fence to end right in the middle, but you could have done that with paper. You can do a road. You know, you can do as much as you want in here. So with that fence line, I might do another little indication here just for fun and just soften everything out. So you can just keep going and going to your little heart's content. And then this could be hills or something in the background. You could also bring the skyline down over top of your paper if you wanted. Say you don't want all that to be mountain and you want your horizon line to come down here. Well, now that paper's just softened the sky. So you can see how easy it is to change these. And I think next time I would play with some tissue paper, because tissue paper leaves some really cool textures behind. I just don't have any in my scraps right now. I'm just gonna darken that horizon line a little. Wet it. Just wetting it. Kind of help visualize the separation. And little peaks of paper still poke through. So you can see it's very minimal, but it's created this interesting composition where your eye is following it. You're not, you think the horizon line's here, but then there's some interest going in the background, and your eyes are kind of going all over it, absorbing it, and then kind of making a understanding of a landscape in your head. And at least that's my take on it, which is what I love about doing these, is how you can really get somebody to walk through this landscape with you and kind of get their own take on it. This one I think I'm going to leave as is. I might darken it a little bit up here. A little bit more moody in the sky, because that's always fun. that. And then let's go to this one here, should be dry. Yep, I got those two done. So let's do some trees. So I'll keep this one relatively quick. I like the idea of a cliff here. So again, just mark making. And then maybe we'll soften that before we put some trees in, because I don't want the trees to bleed so much. That's a lot of water. Which is also kind of cool, because it will puddle. But I don't want to wait too long for it to dry. Okay. Because this pen doesn't like being wet, like I said. So we have our foreground here. Maybe I will make that one dry a bit. Let's let that one dry. I normally would use the drying tool, but I don't have one here. I think it's dry enough. We can play now. So we'll put a dark, oh, it's still wet in a few spots. That's okay. Let's put a little tree here. So I'm going to just draw in a tree, and it's not going to draw while it's still wet. Also, the glue, if you've used a lot of glue, can add a lot of resistance to it. So what we'll do, I think it is the glue that's making it not take the ink, which also has its kind of interest. Like, that's really interesting in there, that it's repelling the ink and makes some interesting results. So this is what this exercise is really all about, is just experimentation. Let's see over here if it will take the pen. So now I'm going to do another big tree. This one's going to end right here. This one's going to go right to the bottom, right off the page. So it's right up in our face. And I just scribble in a tree. So whenever you're drawing your trees, like I've explained before in my quickie sketches, you always want that Christmas tree shape on these pines. So bigger, thicker branches as you work your way down. And again, it is not letting me put ink on. So you could use black paint here instead of the ink. Marker, I do have a marker. Let's see if it will take the marker. Oh, no, that's not a marker. I have this brush archival ink one. So it's a little bit thicker, so it should sit on top of the glue a little bit better. Now you can have a lot more patience than me and wait for this to dry, of course. And I'm just putting in branches. I'm not filling in everything because I want that texture behind the tree to pop through. Might put in a couple of straggly branches. Build up the shape of my tree for some interest, focal point kind of thing. I'm going to repeat it over here just so that that marker is consistent and the mark making on the same subject matter matches, so to speak. Now this is archival, so I doubt very much that it will bleed. We add water, but let's see what happens. I don't think it will. A little bit, but that could be the pen underneath. So let's go back to some white paint now and maybe pop a little contrast in here. So you can see I still have quite a bit of ink on my brush. Let's get rid of that. We didn't do anything too interesting in the sky, so maybe we can do that. I'm just going to rub a little bit in the dry spot because I forgot. And then I'm just going to soften the edge out and contaminate that paper there. Just for a little visual interest in the negative space up the top. Something fun. And then maybe something just intriguing in the background here. What's going on back there? And you can put as much or as little as you like, right? You can really subdue the paper, or you can let the paper shine like this one. This original one here has a lot more paper showing than this one. But you can see how fun they are. I mean, the possibilities of these are just so much fun. So there's today's. And of course, I always sign, just give it a little signature, because they are little mini works of art. And when they go in a journal, or you could pop these in a frame, that would be really cute too. They could go on top of a card, you know, whatever you want to do. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspires you to really let loose and just have fun playing with zero expectations. You know, don't sit down thinking, oh, I've got to make these right. Just sit down and glue and paint and play with whatever tools you have handy. You know, maybe you have a ballpoint pen. Maybe you just have a pencil. You know, pencil can make some pretty unique mark making as well. Like, just have fun and let loose on the mark making. Really enjoy the idea of leaving marks behind. I find people put down marks and they're terrified to, because they think, oh, I don't like that mark. But by the time you're finished doing these layers and of interesting things, those marks get completely subdued, and then they just add a little bit of interest to the background. That's the idea behind mark making. It gets your juices flowing. It gets you loosened up if you allow yourself to just play. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for joining me today. Give me a thumbs up and a share and a subscription if you're interested in more. And we will see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye. Go, Millie. Woohoo! It's a lot of snow.